We left Lyon in a rental car for 8 days. We knew driving from Lyon into Tuscany wasn't going to be cheap. We just didn't know where the money would go. When we arrived back in Lyon, we totaled it all up, and transportation cost $1,300. It wasn't the car rental that surprised us. It was the fact that the tolls and the gas cost more than the car itself.
We sold our house to retire early, and now we slow travel, staying in different places long term to see what it actually costs.
For 3 months in Lyon, we didn't need a car, but Tuscany isn't Lyon. The wineries we wanted to visit were scattered across countryside estates and hill towns, and there wasn't a single train line that connected them.
Or a bus loop that tied them together. So it wasn't a question of should we take the car or a train.
It was whether we needed a car, or does having a car change the entire trip? A day in Tuscany for us would be planned around our scheduled winery visit. We would wake up in the morning.
Pretty late, by the way, because you don't have a wine tour until about 11, 12 o'clock. So I just made coffee every single morning, and we just looked at the gorgeous view outside our window.
When it was time to head out, we would go down a bunch of stairs to get down the hill to the car, and then we would drive to a bakery.
Yeah, it was a hike before getting our cornettos and cappuccinos whenever we left Montepulciano.
And then we'd be off to the vineyard.
Some of my favorite things is just driving around Tuscany because all those countryside roads are just spectacular.
We'd arrive at the vineyard and not be rushed. Very relaxing, a beautiful setting.
No tour bus
No
or
tour bus.
Service car to kind of worry about.
Yeah, we would just take it in and just take our time. And when we were ready, we would head out and visit a neighboring town. Park outside the ZTL, look for parking, park the car.
Sometimes parking was not so easy. One time in, Pienza, it was so crowded that we had to kind of shift our entire schedule, but it was super easy because we had our car.
And we just went off to Bagno Vignoni. We had planned to visit either way and had lunch. And we had a great lunch there that day.
That's a really cool town with a natural thermal spa right in the middle of their town square, which is pretty cool.
And we were also able to go back to Pienza on a different day and buy pecorino cheese and explore. So we didn't really give it up. We just couldn't park that day. Then we would just head back to Montepulciano, and before we parked the car, we'd probably stop at a Conad or grocery store nearby and pick up water and or snacks, park the car and go right back up those stairs, back up the hill to Montepulciano.
Another hike, but well worth it because now you're in the city walls and you can do whatever you want from there. And get dinner. And
explore.
Wind down your day with maybe some
gelato. And then head back to the apartment. And it was very easy to do that because the gelato was right across from the Airbnb. Very convenient.
A daily gelato visit was easy.
We would have taken a train to get from Lyon to Tuscany. We would have needed to make a lot of stops because there is not one direct train that would take you from Lyon all the way to Tuscany.
Right.
We'd first need to go from Lyon to either Milan or Turin.
You got to get into Italy, and then you got to do all these platform swaps.
There's probably 2 or 3 changes.
And you're watching train schedules all day.
And then from Milan or Turin, you then get yourself over to Tuscany, most likely maybe Florence.
Right.
And then same platform changes, trains, possibly. And you're not even in Montepulciano yet.
Montepulciano would take you 2 buses from Florence, or you could set up a car service from there.
Or a taxi.
Yeah.
And all of that takes anywhere between 11 and a half to 17 hours.
Where we did it in 8.5, 9 hours.
And the cost for the train ride could have been anywhere from 85 to 220 euro. And I think 85 was just getting us to Milan.
Yeah, I don't think it was going to be too bad. So for 100 euro, you can get yourself to Tuscany.
But it would take you 17 hours.
Right. The total transportation cost for this trip was $1,300. And it all started with our Hertz rental at $575 that we took from Lyon to Tuscany.
If we'd have just rented a car in Florence for less amount of days, it would have definitely lowered that cost.
Our biggest expense was the gas and the tolls. Now we knew that the Frejus tunnel was going to be the biggest toll expense at $65. But after that, there was tunnel, toll, right?
It just didn't stop. So we started keeping receipts.
By the time we got all the way to Tuscany, our tolls added up to about $300. And I figured out when we got back that we were paying $6.25 a gallon for gas.
And so we ended up spending $312 on gas.
My goodness.
And then parking totaled $95. The most expensive was the 20 euro a day in Monterosso when we were in Cinque Terre. And our Airbnb host helped us find free parking down in Montepulciano in the white section, white parking section.
He really saved us every single day by introducing us to free parking.
We also had a couple of metro charges that were about $25.
And it all equaled $1,300.
If we remove Cinque Terre, we would save $150 to maybe $175 and 3 days. There'd be no Monterosso parking, no train pass. If we remove Lucca, it would save about $30. That was just the fuel and maybe the 10 euro for parking. Lucca was on the way to Rio Maggiore, so it didn't really cost much to add that.
Yeah, and if you think of it as a whole other alternative scenario by flying to Florence first and then picking up a rental car, we probably could have kept it under $1,000 at $800 or $900. But knowing that the tolls was going to cost us more than $300 and the gas was going to be another $300 on top of that, we probably would have taken Florence more seriously.
At $1,300, I think the cost justified what we were actually able to do. I mean, we visited 5 wineries.
Yeah, Avignonesi,
La Braccesca,
Boscarelli,
and we went to Gattavecchi.
And the Cantina De Ricci.
And then we were able to visit 5 hill towns, Pienza, Bagno Vignoni,
Cortona, Montalcino,
and Monticchiello, plus Cinque Terre,
plus Lucca, plus Nice.
All on our schedule without working around having to wait for buses, trains, or shuttles or tour guides. If it had just been Montepulciano for 4 days, I don't think we would have driven from Lyon.
We would have just flown to Florence, rented locally, and we would have saved Cinque Terre as a second trip.
But we added Cinque Terre and Lucca and Nice. So for this trip, I think it was worth it.
Definitely worth it.
The drive from Lyon to Montepulciano was 9 hours long.
The drive is not so bad, but it does take all day. And I wanted to make sure that we got there to see those Tuscan hills in that sunset light.
And we made it. And since you love driving and you hadn't driven in 3 months?
This was kind of very therapeutic for me, and I got to get that out of my system.
You were smiling the entire time. When you were on the windy roads, I made sure to hold on for dear life.
That Frugis tunnel was pretty straight. And
yeah, the Frugis tunnel wasn't very curvy, and it was pretty well maintained, and
huge.
And on the radio, it came up in English. I thought that was interesting.
I think that was pretty awesome how they had a station dedicated just for that tunnel to listen to.
Yeah, they did. And then once we got out of that tunnel, it just felt like endless tunnels. It just never ended. It was tunnel after tunnel, probably over 30 of them.
And toll after toll.
Toll after toll, collecting receipt after collecting receipt. And also the daily uphill walk in Montepulciano, that wore on me. I don't know about you.
It was a ridiculous hike every single day, up and down. But I think that's part of living in those medieval towns.
And every time we parked outside the walls, any town, it was like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those ZTL zones.
Yeah, if a spot seemed too convenient, I just didn't trust it. I'm like, we got to look this up.
Where can we pay so I don't have to freak out about where my car's parked?
I remember doing that a few times, and in Lucca specifically, because we sort of drove into walls, even though we weren't in the walls yet. And I was so sure this is just too easy of a spot for us right now.
I was definitely worried about that, but
the drive to reach the parking lot in Monterosso, oh my gosh.
I think that was my favorite part of the trip.
Of course it was. It was steep drop-offs, very windy.
Literally steep drop-offs.
Yeah, Scott was fine. I was not. But, we had a car, and these are the things that
it made it fun and got us there on our schedule.
Yeah, these are the things we had to consider. If we're going to have a car, we're going to need to deal with the long drive.
Italian drivers running up onto your back bumper.
And going through all those endless tunnels and the uphill walks and, having to be careful with those ZTL zones and those winding roads.
Right.
In Lyon, you don't need a car.
For the 3 months that we were there, I never felt stuck. You got your buses, your train, and your tram to get you everywhere. But in Montepulciano, Tuscany, it's completely different.
It's more practical in Lyon. In Montepulciano, a car is essential. In order to get to the wineries that you might want to visit and to have access to the other towns, you definitely need to have a car.
Without a car, it's going to change your entire trip.
So the question for us now is, wherever we're going, will we need a car to be able to see the things we want to see or go to the places we want to go? It's not really a budget line item anymore. It's more like...
It's more of, does the car make this place work for us?
Back in Lyon, we laid all the receipts out on the table and added them up. At $1,300, driving got us there and gave us access to do the things we wanted to do.
Like me driving again.
It also took away any timeline restrictions like needing to meet a shuttle or a tour guide.
Anything scheduled was great to not have.
So if we were going to go back to Tuscany, would we rent a car again? Absolutely.
But we would look at other categories to cut down on to make that cost a little bit more affordable. When you visit another country, what makes you decide if you want to rent a car? We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.